once, my ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Gromit.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 64th year of the award at the 68th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1995. Today's guest is appearing for the 8th time, more than any other guest. You last heard him discussing balance and perhaps nothing else if you followed our advice in that episode. Please welcome back Christof. Hello, Christof.
Hello, thank you for welcoming back for the 8th time. I own 51% of this company now.
Yes. We are now public on the stock market, and you have bought up a bunch of our shares and are planning a hostile takeover.
Oh, I want to say it's friendly, but if you feel it's hostile, well, that's you.
Well, agree to disagree, let's say. But yeah, it's been 8 lovely episodes. Well, it's been 7 lovely episodes, and we're headed into our 8th lovely episode. And it's just like,
well, it might get a bit ugly. Who knows?
I think if we disagree, it'll be friendly. But I guess we can't know for certain, or maybe just the final short we discuss might just tear us apart. Just not because of each other, just because of the short. But we will get there when we get there. We have a lot to discuss. I'm imagining this is going to be a pretty long episode, just because these are some pretty hefty shorts with a lot that we could talk about with them. But
a lot to dissect here, yes.
But before we get into these, just remind us, Christof, what is your familiarity with the Best Animated Short category?
I like this category a lot. I've seen all of them. I've seen many of them several times, and I'm very looking forward to dipping back into some of these in the course of the show. Some of them I love, some of them I don't love so much, and some of them just happen to be along the way, which I maybe wouldn't have revisited if I hadn't been on your show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like, and that's what I enjoy about this podcast. Is it's just like getting, like, that's part of why I enjoy making it, is just giving each of these short films the real time and the thought into like actually dissecting like what these films are actually about, and like having to talk about them whether I want to or not. It's just like, and it can unveil some new things about these shorts that I didn't think about when I first watched them, or even when I watched them for the episode. Only really thought about them once I started talking about them with my guest. It's a really fun thing.
Yeah, and I mean, there are several in this lineup which I probably would never have. I wouldn't even have remembered watching, and certainly wouldn't have seen any reason to dip back into if it wasn't for your show.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, as we said in previous episodes where I was on, there were some episodes where I really wanted to be on. The main reason I'm on this one is because I wanted to be in a Wallace and Gromit episode, and this one was the farthest away from balance, and I didn't want to come back too closely after that. When I picked this one, I had no idea how absolutely batshit this lineup basically is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least I would say 3 of the 5 films we're talking about qualify as batshit in some way.
Oh yeah, like, actually, I'd even go as far as 4. I think one of them is just too cutesy and to really be qualified as batshit. But I'd say that even our famous winner, Wallace and Gromit and Close Shave, I would qualify that as batshit, because
I mean, yes, it turns into the Terminator at some point. You're right.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like this is a very strange lineup, to put it mildly. And it's just, and especially some of the stories behind these shorts, it's just like what's going on here. But yeah, I'm very excited to be talking about these. But yeah, let's just get into these nominees. There are 5 of them. Our first nominee and the year's winner is, of course, A Close Shave, directed by Nick Park. This is the 4th nomination and 3rd win for Park, a very impressive track record for any person in this category, especially considering the only time he lost was to himself, and all within 6 years, too. This is also the 5th nomination and 3rd win for Aardman Animation, and the 3rd nomination and 2nd win for Wallace and Gromit. All parties involved last appeared on this podcast 2 years ago when The Wrong Trousers won. What is Aardman to do after such a smash success as that? Well, they make another one. Colin Rose, head of the BBC's animation division, went to Aardman a few months after the release of The Wrong Trousers to ask them to make another, with a planned release of Christmas 1995, an 18-month production window. They were eager to make another film, but the time span was a big constraint. This led to A Close Shave becoming a much larger production in order to keep up with the schedule. Double the animators, doubled the budget, but half the time. Nick Park would say afterwards that he did wish there was a bit more time for them, especially in the pre-production stage, because they had to come up with the story completely from scratch, while Wrong Trousers had plenty of time to stew. And with the scale of it all, Nick Park really had to take a step back and just be a director and let his animators work for him. He was so used to personally animating Wallace and Gromit himself that it was hard to just let other people do the work for him. But in the end, we got A Close Shave, which, while its predecessor is meant to be like a Hitchcockian thriller, this film takes more inspiration from adventure films with a twinge of romance thrown in there as well, with the addition of Wendelin Ramsbottom. Also being introduced is a character of Shaun the Sheep, who would go on to get his own spin-off TV series and 2 feature films. A Close Shave begins with a sheep escaping from a truck and into the home of Wallace and Gromit. The next day, the duo finds bite marks all around the house, eventually discovering the sheep. They name it Shaun and put it through the knit-o-matic, making a small sweater and placing it on him. While this is going on, Wallace and Gromit are also getting work as window washers, getting business from a yarn store. Wallace begins to fall in love with the store's owner, however, Gromit discovers that they've been rustling sheep. He frees them, but before he can report the crime, Gromit gets kidnapped and framed as a killer dog that's been murdering sheep. The rustled sheep are now living at Wallace's house. Wendelin has broken off the relationship, and Wallace needs to break Gromit out of prison and find the real culprits. Krista, start us off. What did you think of A Close Shave?
Well, first of all, I love Wallace and Gromit, not just because it's stop motion animation, which I always love. I love the 2 characters. I love Gromit in particular, which is very close to my love for Pluto, because like Pluto, Gromit is a dog who is living in an animated world who doesn't speak. Unlike Pluto, he doesn't even bark, but just like Pluto, he has such an expressive face, and in addition, even body language. Every emotion that goes through his head, every thought that goes through his head is immediately recognizable from Gromit's face and from the way Gromit moves. In contrast, Wallace is not perfect. I will assume that you probably talked about it a lot in your review of The Wrong Trousers a few episodes back, because there he treats him kind of badly. But when Wallace mistreats Gromit, it's more out of thoughtlessness. Overall, I have a feeling he's a much better person to own a dog than Mickey, and he treats Gromit like a companion rather than like a pet, and he actually knows what an asset Gromit is for him. So here in A Close Shave, I mean, I've just watched the 3 shorts in quick succession, and I know there's a 4th short, but you will talk about it later. We don't need to talk about it today.
Yes.
Seeing them in close succession, seeing how A Grand Day Out is still a bit crude in its animation, but the 2 characters are pretty much established there already, to the quality of the animation here, where it looks great, where this is just about the peak how this kind of claymation should look like. It's just wonderful, and there are so many wonderful scenes. There's so many wonderful sight gags. There's a callback to The Wrong Trousers with the entire breakfast regimen, with the porridge gun misfiring. Again, maybe a callback to Mickey and Pluto. If this was a Mickey and Pluto short, Mickey would probably call Pluto a bad dog after this misfires. Wallace is just mainly bemused because Wallace is basically kind of absent-minded and good-natured. There are great funny gags like Wallace having his feet up not on a stool but on Sean, who is eating the stool. It's just wonderful. The plot that kicks in would be my main complaint, maybe that, or maybe my only complaint, that the pacing is a bit odd because it starts a bit late and many parts of the plot are a bit rushed to the point that I almost feel this would have been a great feature-length film as well, because it has enough plot for a feature-length film, with Gromit being wrongly accused of the crime of killing sheep and being imprisoned and breaking out of prison. I could absolutely see this as an 80-minute film if you pace it a bit differently and maybe throw in a few more scenes, subplots. I also I'm surprised Wallace is a character who falls in love so quickly, because he seems a bit absent-minded to be so easily smitten. But I adore the fact that the woman he is so smitten by is basically a very ordinary person, that he sees this ordinary person is just the world for him at the moment. So just before going into any detail and before going into the ending, I love Wallace and Gromit. I love A Close Shave. A Close Shave is probably my favorite Wallace and Gromit short. It's great.
I definitely agree. Having watching the 3 good Wallace and Gromit shorts in a row, this is definitely my favorite one. It's just like, wow. Well, I could hear arguments for why each of the 3 is the best one. They're all great films, but I think personally it's just like the first one is a bit too aimless for me. The second one, I like how you just read me there, where it's just like you probably talked about how mean Wallace and Gromit Wallace is to Gromit in The Wrong Trousers. That is my biggest complaint of The Wrong Trousers, because he is just so, like, he is so ignorant of Gromit when they're supposed to be like these longtime friends, and it's just like, and when things start to grow on, he first thinks that Gromit's the one to blame rather than this thing when he just met, and it's just like he just shoves Gromit to the side for the majority of that film. And it's just like, this is not why I'm here. I want them to be friends. And this features a lot more of their camaraderie. And just like when Gromit gets imprisoned, he hatches a plan to save him immediately. Yeah, and it's just like, actually, it's not even immediately. I think it's implied it's meant to be over like months after he gets like arrested or whatever.
I mean, there must be a huge ass trial in which Gromit in the end is convicted to life in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like it. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe he's still a bit of a dick, but who's to say? But yes, this one I think is easily the best. And it's like, I have almost no complaints about it. I can't even think of a complaint I could have about it. I was just thoroughly entertained throughout. Wallace is at his peak here. Gromit is at his peak here. I love Wendeline. I love Sean is so good. He is such a perfect addition to this world. I wish we had more Wallace and Gromit shorts, just so we could have more Wallace and Gromit and Sean interacting. Like, I imagine he would become more of a part of this series. But as it stands, we just have the 3 main ones, and then we have A Matter of Loaf and Death, which some people like to ignore his existence. And there's also this weird compilation of like 2 like minute long like short segments or whatever, that I forget what it's called or why it exists, but
something about contraptions.
Yeah, the contraption
it's mainly,
shorts.
I believe it's about Wallace's inventions.
Yeah, I've watched that once, and it's like I immediately forgot it. It was just like in one ear at the other. But yeah, this is the peak of everything that is Wallace and Gromit. I think even I don't even think it's like the most iconic one, because it's like I feel like most people think about even talking to my other guests, it's just like most people think about like Wallace and Gromit on the moon, or Wallace in the titular Wrong Trousers. It's like but I guess people also do think about like the pyramid of sheep that we get in this one, or things like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
the image of Gromit on the model train, just putting the tracks in front of it. That's also another famous image
Yeah.
from The Wrong Trousers.
Yes, the iconic train scene is probably the biggest scene thing from Wallace and Gromit, I think, especially since it became like a popular like GIF, and it's like it's something you see often posted on like animation Twitter accounts. It's just like this iconic train scene, and also Feathers McGraw is such an iconic villain, but I prefer the dog in this one. It's just like I think he's great.
He's such a great presence. It's just there's something menacing about him, even although for the longest time he doesn't really do any menacing things except standing and staring.
Mm-hmm. Which is menacing. It's like I think never mind. I'm not going to say that. I'll say that when we finish up this segment. I'll just like awkwardly move on to the next short. But there's something I have to say about the dog. But we'll get back to that. Um, I also want to. There was something you had said. Uh, I I forgot what I was going to comment on. Something you were saying in your first spiel. But anyway, close shave. Great short. Oh, something I did want to say though was that you had mentioned that this would be better as a feature film, and I forgot to put it in my introduction, or like I
I
put it in
wouldn't
it.
say maybe not better, but just as good.
Yeah, it could be a great feature film, is what you were saying.
Yeah.
And something I had read in my research that I meant to put in my intro, but ended up like accidentally deleting, I think, was the fact that this, like in the mind of like Aardman and Nick Park, was that this was supposed to be like a trial run for an eventual Wallace and Gromit movie, or at least an eventual Aardman movie. And I believe that this is like Nick Park's. I don't have any basis on this, but I think it might be Nick Park's last thing before he does eventually make uh Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which famously won the Best Animated Feature Oscar. And so that's good for him. I just wanted to throw that out there. Oh wait, he also directed Chicken Run. Okay. I forgot, I wasn't sure if it was him or Peter Lord for that one. But yeah, this was his last project before moving on
Wasn't Chicken
to
Run
feature.
both of them?
Was it both of them? I just went to his page and saw he directed Chicken Run. Yeah, okay, it is both of them. Nick Park and Peter Lord directed Chicken Run. And so yeah, this was the last Nick Park thing before they made their feature film. And so this literally was their trial run for their feature film. And everybody loves Chicken Run.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
mean, there's so much to enjoy here. And what I love is how, I mean, the world Wallace and Gromit live in, they are getting a call in which they are supposed to clean windows, after which they immediately go into Wallace's version of a bat cave, in which they are transformed into the right dress and getting the right vehicle for just going out. And it's just so amazing for something as mundane as cleaning windows. They have this contraption that makes them immediately ready, because this is the world they live in, or the world they have built for themselves, the house where everything is super automated, like this breakfast regimen at the beginning. This is just the way Wallace and Gromit work, and it's just the way Wallace and Gromit streamlined everything about their daily life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do really love all the contraptions, the inventions that get made. And it's just like it's almost funny how it's just like how whatever is in Wallace's and garage is just happens to be exactly what he needs for that moment. It's like in the first short, it's like he wants to go to the moon to get some cheese. Good thing he's been working on a rocket. And it's just like in this one, we have a run-in with some sheep. Good thing he's been working on a knit-o-matic that he just so happens to have. It's like, I wonder if maybe he was inspired by the news articles about sheep being rustled. And it's just like, oh, Gromit, maybe I should make a knit machine.
Yeah, it's basically a sheep cleaning apparatus that also shears the sheep and knits a sweater, where apparently along the way it's also dyeing the wool, because the sweater that comes out has a colored pattern on it.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe Sean just naturally has multicolored wool that we just didn't really notice. I guess he was covered in a bunch of food, but he I guess he also did go through a bath. I don't know. Maybe it does have a dyeing thing.
It probably has, but talking about Wallace after all.
Yeah, he probably thought of everything. Or maybe it's a malfunction in the machine. It's not supposed to dye it, but it actually accidentally does. Who's to say?
Maybe.
I I actually wish that the so like in the ending of the short, it's like the Nidomatic gets destroyed, but I feel like it could have been good. Like I know it kind of tortured Sean on when he went through it, but I feel like it's just a very good machine. If you just make it a bit more sheep friendly, I feel like it'd be very useful. Well, too, specifically Wendeling, it's just like it'd make the process of making all her yarns or whatever a lot easier. Or it's just like it help her run her store. But then again, by the end of the short, they seem to have grown apart in their relationship, and so who really cares?
Yeah, I mean, if we're skipping right to the end and completely going over the wonderful, amazing, great, exciting action scene, as you just mentioned, the anime grown apart, the thing that seals the fact that Gwendolyn is not the right woman for Wallace is the fact that she doesn't love cheese. And when she tells him that she doesn't love cheese, you can actually pinpoint the exact moment his heart rips in half.
Oh, it's
Because
Ralph Wiggum all over again.
yeah, it's not even Wensleydale, and it's just so endearing that I mean it's basically also Wallace again that cheese is more important to him than anything else, and I find that relatable.
I wonder what he would pick if he had to pick between cheese and Gromit. It's just like I
It
I don't
it's a
want him to
good
put in that
thing.
decision.
Yeah, it's a good thing it doesn't have to choose, and
Yeah.
because also Gromit doesn't love cheese that much, but he tolerates Wallace's cheese habit, I would say.
I I think Gromit enjoys cheese too. Not to the level that Wallace
Yeah,
enjoys it, but it's like I think he like especially in that first short, he seems like he seems eager to get cheese and is very disappointed when it turns out they don't have cheese.
I believe Gromit got into cheese because of Wallace.
That I could see. Like
Because Wallace made Gromit try cheese, and Gromit realized, oh, that's kind of good stuff. He's definitely not as much into cheese as Wallace is, but it's something like that.
have we ever seen like the origin story of like Wallace and Gromit coming together?
I
Because it's
don't think so.
I really would love to see like how Wallace found Gromit or whatever, or maybe Wallace had owned like Gromit's father or mother or whatever, or and then like so like Gromit had just grown up with him or whatever. Or so it's like I would be interested in seeing that if we haven't yet.
Yeah, they have somehow been a duo who have always been and will always be.
That's
I
fair.
don't want to imagine one without the other.
Yeah. It's just like God, I just love these characters. These are just such perfect characters. And also going back to the whole Wensleydale thing, I love how after their whole doorway conversation ends, it's like he goes back and sits down in the chair and it's just like, what's wrong with Wensleydale? Oh, it's just like it's so defeated. It's just like he truly did care about her, but it's just like it. But then finding out she doesn't like cheese, it's just like how could he have been fooled so long? It's just like how could this person exist? But you know, and I also
And I
love
mean, she was a party to everything that led to Gromit going into jail. She wasn't a willing participant, but she was a participant.
Mhm.
But that did not end his love for her. But the fact that she doesn't like cheese, that's the deal breaker.
Exactly. It shows his correct priorities and where they are. Or it's just like I'm on his side. Like could I love someone who doesn't like cheese? I'm not sure. I haven't been forced in that position, but I don't want to be. And it's just like I have lactose intolerant friends, and even they like cheese.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's rewind a bit and let's talk about that action scene that you were so eager to talk about, where it's just like they have to save the sheep and save Gromit and save Wendelete and everyone. And it's like, what a fantastic scene this is. It's like people like we were saying, people talk about the train scene the most. And it's like I feel like this scene does not get enough, because I think my favorite part of it is when, so it starts out with Wallace and Gromit. They're on the motorcycle with Gromit in the sidecar, but then they get unlatched from each other. Gromit goes careening off a cliff, and then he just presses a button and it turns into a plane. And it's just like what Gromit becomes Snoopy for for the rest of this. He becomes the Red Baron, and it is amazing.
It's such a great image seeing Gromit fly with this little airplane, and then he's getting this gun out, where we say that in this short, Chekhov's gun is shooting porridge, because it's the same thing that we saw at the breakfast earlier. The thing that was just shooting the porridge into the plate of Wallace, and then into the plate of Wallace, and then into his face and everywhere. It's loaded with porridge again. He's shooting with this porridge gun at the truck that the dog is driving. It's just great. It's actually exciting. At the same time, it's fun. It's the best of both worlds.
Truly just sublime. And like I mentioned, the sheep pyramid that they have going on top of there at one point, it's such an iconic sight. I truly love the sight of all those sheep.
It looks amazing. And then they're approaching a tunnel, and they manage to all get into the tunnel, just get the right shape to just go through the tunnel unharmed. It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it's just truly a delight. And like the times when it's like when after they get to the factory and Gromit is flying around trying to find them, and then Sean's able to turn on the lights, and Gromit has to like crash through like 3 different walls in order to get into them. It's all just so thrilling, and it's just like that's like these Wallace and Gromit shorts are so great at being able to balance the humor, the charm, and the excitement to all create just such fantastic pieces of cinema. And it's like this is why they succeed. It's just because it hits everything. It hits everything you need for or want for something like this.
And it's smart and it's clever. It's just using things that we've seen earlier, and it just you get to appreciate the fact that it has smart characters and smart writers, and that just that things just work out perfectly. And then just when we thought it is so exciting, the film reveals that the dog is a robot. It's basically almost a Terminator kind of moment when the dog is sucked into this sheep shearing machine, the Nidomatic, and then comes out of it revealed to be all metal and seemingly unbeatable.
It's God, what a design too. It's just like I love how he looks as a robot, and the whole ending thing where it's like they're on the what's it called, the mutton nomadic, I think it was, as his own machine for killing sheep and turning them into dog food. And it's like they're running on that treadmill, and then he gets eaten up by the machine, and his own creation, and it's just like it's sublime.
Also, just as they go to the mutton nomadic, it's one of the reasons why this works so well is because even in those scenes, it doesn't forget who these characters are. Because the moment Wallace realizes what this is, his immediate reaction is saying, "It's a sheep mincing thing." Now that's clever. So his admiration for a great invention is at this moment more important, so big that he is for a moment oblivious to the danger it presents to him. So,
it's like
I knows who the characters are.
I don't think that Wallace has ever thought about dying. I think he's completely unburdened by fear of death or anything. It has never crossed his mind that things might end. And it's just like he's just living life in the moment and he's having a blast.
I kind of love the joke a few moments later when Wendelin is shouting duck and Wallace is just asking where.
I like it. There's like 3 moments of that where like the things are like flying over their heads, and it's all so good. And yeah, that one specifically is such a funny little moment. And it's like it's always those little moments that really, really make Wallace and Gromit great. I, everything about these is great. Everything works together to make such a fine film. It's fantastic.
It certainly is.
But yeah. Anything else you'd like to say about Wallace and Gromit and the Close Shave?
Uh, I have a few things actually written down. I just made note of a few side gags that I loved. I loved that in Gromit's prison cells on the wall, someone wrote "Feathers was here."
Well, I can imagine who would write that.
Also,
Although it like
oh,
in the Wrong Trousers, he wasn't in a prison, he was in the zoo.
that's right. Also, Gromit is reading Crime and Punishment by Fido Dostoevsky,
I I
which was
screamed when I saw that. It was amazing.
a Penguin classic.
Hmm.
That and I just noted down all the newspapers that we were seeing. Some of them are the Morning Post, the Evening Post, and the Afternoon Post. We also got the Daily Beagle, but I like the Daily Lamp Post and the Telegraph.
Oh, that's great. Uh I liked how one of the newspapers, like I think it's in the montage where he's like seeing like Gromit go on trial and then get imprisoned or whatever. It has one of them for a picture of Gromit has this like really like kind of collage mosaic kind of image of Gromit. I just thought that was really eye-catching. It was a really fun piece
Yeah.
of art that I like. I would want that to hang in my house. This is like is a really good artwork. But yeah. Anything else you wrote down?
I mean, there's so much. It's so beautiful, and there's so much to it. And I mean, it's half an hour. It's such a wonderful time to spend 30 minutes.
Exactly.
I really enjoy the short a lot. But I think we have many other things to dissect, so I think we maybe should move on to the weird and the odd and the ugly that is ahead of us.
Sure. I think we might have been talking for like 20 minutes on that one alone. But I just want to say that Gromit and the robot dog, I think they should be in love together. Anyway, our second nominee is The Chicken from Outer Space, directed by John R. Dilworth. This is the first and only nomination for Dilworth. Today's short film also features the debut appearance of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Dilworth was born in New York City and attended the School of Visual Arts there, where he found his love for animating and animation. Once he graduated, he worked in advertising for a decade while putting his spare funds into his filmmaking. He had made a name for himself in the animation world, with shorts of his airing on Comedy Central, MTV, Nickelodeon, even doing some work with Cartoon Network. But it is this short film that really set his career going. After winning several awards at film festivals and garnering this Oscar nomination, Dilworth shopped the short around to see if anyone was interested in turning it into a TV series, and Cartoon Network said yes. This, of course, ended up being Courage the Cowardly Dog, which ran for 4 seasons and 52 episodes from 1999 to 2002. From there and to this day, Dilworth keeps animating, but nothing else quite reaches the notoriety of Courage. Going back to the short, in an interview, Dilworth mentions that this short and the ensuing series was inspired by a fascination with the American heartland, the myth of the farm. He also cites Nick Park as an inspiration, and specifically The Wrong Trousers and its villain, Feathers McGraw, a silent penguin, being the inspiration for the titular chicken from outer space. It must have been an honor for him to lose to Nick Park then. But that's enough chatter. What's this film about? It's about Courage the Cowardly Dog, who sees a chicken that came from outer space. No surprise there. He tries to tell his owners, an elderly man and woman, about the chicken, but every time he trots them out, there's nothing suspicious. Well, that or they're just oblivious. When the man eats one of the chicken's eggs, though, he himself turns into a chicken. Can Courage save the family, or will they become chicken feed? So I'm going to preface this by just saying I watched a lot of Courage the Cowardly Dog when I was a child. It was one of my favorite shows. Whenever they had those reruns going on, it was just like I absolutely loved it. I think it might have influenced my love of like that kind of brand of like animated horror and stuff. The reason I do love most of the horror shorts that get nominated in this category. And but for this one specifically, it's fine. It's a good start for what Courage the Cowardly Dog would become, but I think there's just a bit too much that's like off about it. And it's just like I don't think this is because it's like I'm so familiar with the show. It's like seeing this prototype kind of puts me on the wrong foot or whatever. I just think it's a bit weird. And it's just like for example, like the ending of the short, the ending few minutes, it's just like it's just the dad. I'm gonna call them Eustace and Muriel because that's what they're called in the show, even though they don't officially have names here. Uh it has Eustace just turning into a chicken slowly while like maniacally laughing, and then it has Courage and the chicken just playing different like child's games in order for some goal. I think it's to decide who's going to leave, but it just feels like such a strange thing to do, and it's not funny to me, and it just goes on for so long. It takes up like it feels like half the short, but it's maybe just a couple minutes. It's just like why are we still at this point? Why hasn't anything changed yet? And it just keeps going. But then, and also, like, this is more funny than it is like a nitpick, but it's just like when there's a point when like the chicken comes in and he just kills all the chickens that are in the chicken coop, and it's just like Courage goes and grabs Muriel and goes back, and the chicken from outer space is the only chicken that's there, and Muriel just has no uh just does not care that there's only one chicken, even though I imagine she knows that she should have a bunch of chickens in there. But no, it's just the one weird chicken, and it's weird spotted eggs that, again, she doesn't care that there's red spots in them or that there's red spots on the yolks that she's cooking either. Just happily serves them to her husband and to herself that she would have eaten if it weren't for the fact that Eustace started turning into a chicken in front of her. Which, this is a fine short. It has some good funny moments. I love Courage as a character, but it's just a bit weird, and it's just like I could see why this got nominated. I see why this was picked up for an animated series, but I'm much happier about like the changes they made to it to make that great cartoon. And it's just like this short itself, like it's very clearly a test run. And even though I'm not even sure if it was meant to be like a pilot, I think it was just made as a short that Dilworth eventually was like, hey, why don't we make a cartoon out of this? But yeah, I've rambled long enough. Christof, what do you think of this?
Well, first of all, my own familiarity with Courage the Cowardly Dog begins and ends with The Chicken from Outer Space. I've never watched a single episode or even bits of a single episode of the show. Second of all, my Letterboxd review of this film just says weird stuff. And I'm not sure if I can really add anything of substance to that because it is so weird. I mean, the image of the old guy, I believe you called him Eustace.
Eustace, yes.
Turning into a chicken with a beak that has teeth in it. It's the stuff of nightmares. I also believe that the word that I've written down most often in my notes for this one is just ugly. And the word I wrote down second most often is weird. The design of the chicken, which kind of looks like it has testicles hanging from under the beak, is strange. It has a very manic energy. There's so much stuff happening that's just, as you're watching it, you wonder what is happening here. It is, when I say it is ugly, it feels like it's not accidentally ugly. It is like it's is very much on purpose. At least it feels like it's very much on purpose. It's just baffling to watch it unfold in front of me. It's a lot, even when, as you mentioned, there are moments when nothing really happens and nothing really progresses. You just see the old guy turning into half man, half chicken, and Courage and the chicken outside doing all kind of like playing checkers and arm wrestling, and eventually deciding what they're doing with a competition of who can hold his breath the longest. It's weird. The chicken also has a stun gun, which I believe it's a he. I mean, he's laying eggs, so maybe it's she. The chicken they get a stun gun, which they could use very early, but they only get it out towards the end. And the stun gun turns an airplane into a model airplane, and I believe a volcano into the Maui on the East Islands, and eventually the chicken itself into a grilled chicken. And then Courage vaporizes the chicken grandpa and turns him into a pile of dust. Although apparently I'm happy to hear that apparently he appears again in the show, so his death isn't terminal. Yeah, it's a baffling thing to watch. I see how you can have a fascination with this. Ultimately, it reaches a point where I'm saying, okay, this can stop now. I'm overwhelmed enough by whatever this is. It is, as to quote my Letterboxd review again, weird stuff.
Yeah, it definitely is weird stuff, and I want to focus in on the ending because it's like it's like first, especially from the point of view of Muriel, the old woman. She sees her husband turn into a chicken in front of her very eyes. I think she does understand that it's because of what she served him that it caused him to be like that, and he's just laughing maniacally all the way through. And it seems like he's about to attack her or something, or maybe he's just standing there menacingly, and then her dog comes in, shoots him with a ray gun that vaporizes him, and she doesn't know where he got the ray gun from, but from there it's just like the dog brings the chair over, she sits down, he gets into her lap, and it's all happy ending. It's just like that's it. It's just, oh, what an ending! What a way to end.
Yeah, but then also after that we see how a mouse, and it's the very same mouse that scares Courage at the beginning of the film, eats some of the ashes of the grandpa chicken, and it's implied that maybe the mouse will now turn into a chicken itself, and Courage is scared again and just says, "This shouldn't happen to a dog," and then it's over.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I forgot about the mouse. I watched this like 2 hours ago. But yeah, it's an ending. It's certainly an ending. It's not a bad ending. I don't think it's a great ending, but it's a good end. Maybe it's a good end. I don't know. I'm just rambling here.
It's an ending.
It's an ending. And just like that, this segment also ends. And our third nominee is, ironically, The End, directed by Chris Landreth. This is the first nomination for Landreth and the first and only nomination for Robin. I think it's Barger. There's not much to know about Barger, to the point that I had to find out for myself that the Wikipedia list of nominees had misspelled his name, but I was able to find that he is mainly a musician and a composer, specializing in computer-generated sound. He's mainly taken up educational roles as of late, even becoming the Dean of the College of Arts at California State University, Long Beach. More power to you, Robin, but that's all I have to say about you. Let's move on to Chris Landreth, who we'll talk about again in one decade. Landreth was first an engineer, getting a master's degree in theoretical and applied mechanics from the University of Illinois, and began experimenting with fluid mechanics. I imagine perhaps new technologies of fluid simulation is what began his interest in computer animation. But it wasn't long before he started trying out new computer animation technology, and not long after that did he start making films. He was hired by Alias Wavefront in 1994 to test computer animation software, and he tested it by making today's nominee. This is not only Landreth's first film, but this is the first nominee not made by Pixar to be done with 3D computer graphics. The future is coming fast, and I'll be saving the rest of Landreth's story for his next nomination. So, the end. What's it all about? It's about an animator talking with his animations, trying to explain what his experimental avant-garde film is about, and then trying to find a good ending for it. Christof, what did you think of the end?
Well, speaking of weird and ugly stuff, here we are. I believe, knowing from seeing how you rated this on Letterboxd, this is almost certainly the film we're going to be most differing on in this episode, because I rather like this film and I am giving it the benefit of the doubt in some cases where you might call it dubious. This film begins with a very strange scene that I cannot explain. I cannot even describe it accurately. It's just two heads, one of a man and one of a woman, with weird stuff hanging from them that's vaguely shaped like buddies, who are spouting out pretentious nonsense dialogue to one another while they are surrounded by chess pieces, and everything is set to weird music. And then they're wondering what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
And a voiceover suddenly explains to them that they are characters in an animated film, and he is not how they imagine God, but he's the animator who just created them. And then it gets very meta, and I am a sucker for things that are meta. I like shit that is going meta. I mean, it's not an ostrich told me the world is fake, and I think I believe it, but it's sort of going into that direction of going a bit into questioning what is creation, what is the creator. And I think everything that is strange and maybe even awful about what we are seeing is mainly there to be poked fun at, because in the course of the dialogue between the creator and the animator and the characters are basically accusing the animator of being pretentious. Like, there's this bird hand thing that is flying about them, wondering what this is, and the animator is saying things like, I have to make this metaphors obscure so that the audience will spend lots of time analyzing them. And the moment I heard this line, I basically thought maybe back in 1996, Chris Landreth knew that one day people would make podcasts and talk about his films. And so he basically predicted this podcast. He predicted your podcast, this episode of your podcast. He predicted me on this episode of your podcast, giving him so much credit and trying to dissect it and trying to appreciate it and finding meaning on it. And I think there's humor there. And also there's Chris Landreth taking the limitations he has, because he clearly didn't have the means to make this look polished and make this look palatable. And by adding himself as a character, as the animator talking to his characters, he turned this into an asset, because at one point the female characters are so the fact that we have no ears, is that another metaphor? He says, oh, this is stylistic streamlining, because he couldn't do the ears. And this then turns into an argument where one of the characters says, oh, this isn't true, and I have free will. And the moment this character says, I have free will, the film changes, and we see this character saying, I am free will on a storyboard, and it gets one step back, and the animator himself becomes a character, and the animator is calling a friend or talking to a friend on the phone, discussing ideas, how the film would end. And the animator is suggesting two endings, which are deliberately awful, very on the nose, as the person is talking to calls out a concept of hammers hammering down on the characters as being the conventions. And it really goes to the animator embracing the concept that he himself is a fictional character, which changes the way he thinks about himself in the ending. So it's very meta, which I like and which I enjoy and which I buy, partly because the film goes meta to cover over the limitations the film has and basically explain the weirdness of it all. And I fully believe that the obnoxious pretentiousness of the opening is really only there to poke fun at, have the characters themselves poke fun at how bizarre this is. And as I am buying this concept, as I am buying this almost self-satire that subtly is there, I really love it as a whole package. And now I will let you shit all over it because I know that you hate it.
Okay. So I'm going to start off by saying I think you're selling this a bit short, because I think there's another layer of meta on top of this that you aren't acknowledging, because it's like I don't think the animator that is in this film is supposed to be Chris Landreth. I think the animator himself is meant to be creation upon itself. And it's just like, this isn't a film that like Chris Landreth made and it's like looking back on it, it's like it's like it's not an idea that he had and is like trying to analyze it, trying to come up with an ending. It's like the whole situation is created. It's just like it's all just like creations all the way down. And it's just like, and but the thing about that is just like I just don't care. And it's just like it starts off with this very ugly, very annoying, incredibly hard to look at and listen to, like piece of shit, pretentious film, which again is meant to be piece of shit and pretentious, but that doesn't make it any more like easy to listen to. It's just assaulting the senses of the listener for a whole minute. And then we get to the second part of the short, which is the characters talking to the animator, which again, we still have to look at this very ugly world that we are forced to be in. And it's like it comes up with this just half-baked like, oh, isn't this stupid how artsy it's trying to be kind of jokes. It's just like, you've seen this kind of shit so many times. And then it goes out to another layer where it's actually we're looking at the storyboard and we're looking at the animator trying to figure out an ending. And it's again, this whole short is just a very easy joke about like, oh, aren't filmmakers pretentious? Don't they make just stupid films that don't actually have much deep meaning? And to comment on that, you yourself make a pretentious film that has no deep meaning and also isn't funny. It's just it's just so ugly to look at. And I usually love like ugly early CGI, but this is just ugly in a bad way rather than ugly in a good way. It's like, to compare it with like the ugly baby from Tin Toy. I fucking love that baby. It's such an ugly baby. I love it so much. I would love to own like a 3D model of it, like a statue of that baby, because it is such a perfect ugly creature. Nothing in this is worth anything. I would enjoy watching this film be burned. As just like, I just hate this so thoroughly. I had given it 2 stars on my first watch, and on this rewatch, I thought that was too kind to it. I lowered it. And it's one of the worst nominees in this whole category to me. it's just so thoroughly nothing. And also that stupid ending where it's just like the ending is like the ending that you're watching, and it's just like and so like they have the three endings that we were talking about. It's the one with the hammers, and then it's like the two figures coming together in a burst of love. And then the third one is just like, what if you make yourself this conversation be the fucking ending? And then it's just like, and then it goes into this weird thing where the animator or whoever is just like, I can make myself anything. I can make myself a black man or a small Indian boy. That just goes on for a minute, just him morphing into different people. It's just like, what is this? What is this ending? This isn't anything, which I guess maybe is the point, but that doesn't make it better. Just because you intended it to be bad, it doesn't make it less bad. It's just I I hated watching this throughout the whole runtime. It it goes on for way too long. Even though it's only like 6 minutes, it just feels like forever. It is so irritating. And I'm so glad that Chris Landreth's other film, which we will get to, and like I said, in a decade, in 10 weeks, 11 weeks, uh, is so much better than this one. It, yeah, fuck this movie.
You're so vitriolic about it. I almost love it. And I I have to say, I don't really think the comparison to the ugly Pixar baby is justified, because the ugly Pixar baby, the intent behind it is to look like a real baby. Nothing here has any intent to look real, except maybe the animator at the end. But everything that looks particularly ugly at the beginning is just human beings, human heads with stuff hanging from them, which are vaguely body shaped. It never attempts to do anything to look real. It just wants to be as pretentious as it could be, to poke fun at it. And I will admit it is an easy kind of comedy to do something pretentious and then say, "Oh, look, isn't this pretentious?" But I found myself really liking it, and found myself enjoying this meta-ness of it all, and the fact that maybe just turning, as I said, turning your limitations into an asset. If all you can think of is the pretentious stuff, then just do it, add another layer, say it is pretentious stuff, and run with it. And I think the film is quite successful at that.
Mhm. Well, I'm happy that you can find something worthwhile in it. I
So am I.
I'm not the same way. I I would still like disregard your complete enjoyment of it and still just enjoy the destruction of every single copy of this film that is available. I'm I There's this famous quote when George Lucas was asked about the Star Wars Holiday Special, which is, to a side note, is much better than this, by the way. As he said that if he had the time and the resources, he would find every copy of it and destroy it with a hammer. And this film is really making me feel that. And I just I just hate it. It's so much.
Yeah, let's agree to disagree.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about this? Because I feel like if I talk more, it's just going to be a constant feedback loop of me saying I hate this over and over again.
Yeah, I think I at least try to express why I appreciate it so much, and I think it's certainly a lot more thought. There goes a lot more thought to it, and it's rather intelligent, and it's very well worth checking out, I would say, for doing what it does successfully. I would say successfully. So uh, I think it doesn't deserve all the hate.
I I honestly, like, I'm thinking that if there's a person who is listening to this and they watch some of the shorts but not all of them, I think they're going to be interested in watching this more because of how much I hate this, and just got to be like, wow, I gotta see what what made them just rant like that. I haven't heard that before, or it's just like they're gonna do a double feature of The End and The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, the Horse. Just this. But yeah,
And they're gonna enjoy The End a lot more.
I would personally enjoy Boy, Mole, Fox, Horse more than this, which says a lot.
It does.
Actually, I have my ranking list here. I want to see how low it is in here. I never really looked how closely it ended up, but it is the sixth worst nominee, in my opinion, in the history of this category, right between Educated Fish and Sydney's Family Tree. So a lot to live up to there. But
Wow.
we haven't gotten to the bottom two yet in this category yet. They're both more recent. I guess there's one in the 2000s, one in the 2010s, and we will come up on them eventually, and you'll hear me rant about those as well. But yeah, I think I'm going to take a liberty and say that we are pretty much done with talking about The End, so we'll move on to our fourth nominee, which is Gagarin, directed by Alexei Karididi, I think it is. Karididi. This is his first and only Oscar nomination. Karididi, from his own website, is a self-taught animator and background artist. There's unfortunately not much to say about him, especially considering there's at least 4 different spellings of his name I have to wade through. But from what I can find, he was mainly an independent animator for his whole time in Moscow, just making films with the resources he had, going to college and getting a degree in animation, and eventually finding success with today's film, even winning the Palme d'Or for Best Short Film at the Cannes Film Festival. Beyond that, Karididi moved to Canada in 1998 and has since been working as an animator. He developed skills using Flash and has animated and directed a number of commercials and worked on various TV shows in various capacities. And that's about all that there is to say. Gagarin is about some cute little caterpillars and seeing the world through their eyes. One caterpillar finds itself inside a badminton shuttlecock and gets to experience flight. So a lot of the words that I see come up about this film when like reading through Letterboxd reviews are just very accurate. The first word I see a lot is the fact that it is the word simple, and the second word I see a lot is cute. And that's what it is. It's a 3-minute short film of just some cute caterpillars. One of them, they like hide away from like the dragonfly that they see in the helicopter in the sky. And when people are playing badminton near them, they hide behind this. I think it's a stick or a log or something. And then the shuttlecock gets like hit off the field or whatever, and one of them climbs into it. And for the middle of the short, you just see the one cat. You watch through Caterpillar's eyes as it flies through the sky, just being hit back and forth. And it's both disorienting and beautiful, which is exactly what you're supposed to experience. It's exactly what the caterpillars feel like. Hey, and it's just like it flies around for a little bit, eventually gets to land when someone else makes an error, and he clearly did not like that. He is clearly nauseated. And then after that, it cuts to the future where he turns into or all the caterpillars, they turn into butterflies and moths and whatever, and they all fly off except for the one that was in the shuttlecock. And it clearly just does not want to do that again. And it's so simple. But it is so cute for what it is. I greatly enjoyed this. There's not much to say about it, but at the same time, you don't need to say anything about it. You just need to watch it and enjoy it. It is cute. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's very slight. In a way, it stands out in this category this year because it really is the only film in this lineup that very well could have been made in the 1960s, because everything else is so different and out there that it could not have been made a lot earlier than it was released here. And this feels almost traditional. It is quite beautifully animated. I'm not entirely sure that this style of animation lends itself to the more kinetic scenes when the caterpillar is flying in the shuttlecock, which is not as overwhelming as it maybe should have been to really work, because it's more of a children's book animation, and I think it didn't work 100%. I'm also not entirely a fan of the sound design, which maybe could have been different to have a bit more of a punch. But yeah, I mean, it's a cute, simple 3-minute short, which doesn't try to do much and sort of succeeds at what it does, even if could have been maybe even more successful with a bit more of a punch, because I'm not really that overwhelmed by the flight scenes of the shuttlecock.
Mm-hmm. I definitely get that. But at the same time, it's like I think it's not even trying to be that overwhelming. I think it really just has some simple aspirations, and it succeeds at the low bar it's setting for itself. Which to I don't want to sell it short or anything. It's not like a half-ass film or anything. It's just
sweet.
It's just yeah, exactly. It's almost like uh it's almost something like one of the adaptations of like children's stories that we get in this category sometime, where it's just telling like these simple little picture story as just like it's just a cute little thing. It's like
Yeah.
I could
Only it's
imagine a children's book based on the same story, and
yeah,
it's like it
only
feels like that.
this is 3 hours long rather than 30 hours long, as the children books short films usually are.
You mean minutes?
Yeah, minutes. Sorry.
3 hours of a caterpillar getting hit in the shuttle.
Yeah.
And I mean, Boy Mole Fox Horse did feel like 30 hours, but it wasn't actually that long.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes. Uh, but yes, yeah, like I said, it's just like the words that come up are simple and cute, and that's what we've been saying about it. It is a very simple, very cute short film that it's it's exact. It's pretty much a palate cleanser, I would call it, where it's just like it's something that like if you are doing like a run of this category, it's something that comes up. It's just like let's say you just watched The End and you just absolutely hated it, and you're about to watch Runaway Brain. Hey, and you're just not excited to get that in there. But you have this sweet little film that's just like, oh yeah, things can be good in this world. Isn't that such a nice thought? But then it's so brief that like after the 3 minutes are up, it feels like it was over before it began, and you're just faced with the reality that you're gonna have to watch a Mickey Mouse short now. And
Yeah.
that's not a fun thought.
Before we move on to that, do you want to say shuttlecock one more time?
Shuttlecock. What a great word. Thank you, Badminton, for giving us that. All right, I think it's time to finally deal with the beast of this episode. And one of the longest paragraphs I've had to write for the intros of any short film that I've covered on this podcast. But our fifth and final nominee is Runaway Brain, directed by Chris Bailey. This is the first and only nomination for Bailey, and the rats are fucking back, y'all. This is the 9th nomination for Mickey Mouse, last appearing in 1983 with Mickey's Christmas Carol. The 4th nomination for Minnie Mouse, was last nominated in 1938, and the 2nd nomination for Pete the Cat, last nominated in 1933. Chris Bailey was an animator with Disney ever since graduating Cal Arts in 1985, and while I'd love to frame this story around Bailey, the story of Runaway Brain is more about Mickey. Chris Bailey is just the future director of It's Tough to Be a Bug and Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. No, this is Mickey's story, and it begins back in 1983. Mickey's Christmas Carol releases, and people loved seeing the old characters returning to the big screen again, so Disney tries their hand at making some more theatrical shorts. They follow it up with The Prince and the Pauper, which was a flop because it released with The Rescuers Down Under, an underrated gem of the Disney catalog. Disney sees that something isn't working, and so something gets into the minds at Disney that Mickey needs to be reinvented, be brought into the 90s, not stuck in the past. In Walt Disney Animation Studios, if you aren't working on the next animated feature, you're working on Mickey, trying to think of something, anything that'll make people interested in him. Among the passage of the Mickey hot potato, it lands in front of Chris Bailey, who first has the idea for Tourist Trap, an idea that was originally a Roger Rabbit cartoon that got repurposed to fit Mickey and Donald, and allegedly centered around Donald trying to kill Mickey Mouse. Fun in theory, but bombed in storyboard screenings, so he worked on a new idea, and that idea became Runaway Brain. The short tried to toe the line between breaking away from the classic Mickey image without totally destroying it. Make him rough and edgy, but he's still Mickey. There was a lot of headbutting between Bailey and the Disney executives. Originally, Jeffrey Katzenberg, head of Disney Animation, was a big supporter of Bailey in the film, but he left Disney in the middle of production. So the other producers demanded cuts of the nearly finished film, resulting in panicked reanimation of several shots. It was clear that the studio that had once openly searched for a new and different take on Mickey was no longer interested in it. In any case, the short was completed and a bit softer than what Bailey wanted. But the real kicker that showed that the studio had zero faith in the film, it was shown alongside a kid in King Arthur's court. How pathetic. Since its release, Chris Bailey left Disney, sensing their hostility towards him, and Disney has rarely ever referenced or re-released the film. It's not on Disney Plus. It never aired on the Disney Channel. It has very limited home video releases. It's like when I searched up on that, it only has like one release of each film format. There's one VHS release, one Laserdisc release, one DVD release, and one Blu-ray release. And there's rumors that internally, Disney discourages references to Runaway Brain and allegedly even uses the film as a what not to do when making Mickey Mouse content. So, what is it about Runaway Brain that makes Disney hide it away in the deep, dark recesses of the Disney vault, chained up and locked away forever? Runaway Brain starts with Mickey Mouse playing the Seven Dwarfs fighting game, clearly obsessed and on a gaming binge. Minnie bursts in, excited about their anniversary, but Mickey has completely forgotten. She gets mad, and Mickey tries to tell her that they're instead going on a pathetic mini golf date, but miscommunication leads her to think they're going to Hawaii. Mickey can't afford this, so he ends up signing up as a test subject for a mad monkey scientist named Dr. Frankenolly, who wants to switch up Mickey's brain with Julius, his monster, that looks an awful lot like Pete. The brain swap works, and Mickey's brain is in the monster, but then his body becomes the monstrous one, and the brainless mouse ends up lusting after Minnie. Will Mickey be able to swap his brain back into his own body? Will Julius be stopped? Will they actually go to Hawaii? Is Mickey an absolutely awful boyfriend? Christof, what did you think of Runaway Brain?
I cannot believe that this is an official Mickey Mouse short. This stems from a truly, truly sick mind indeed. It's seedy fan fiction that somehow got released by the Walt Disney Studio. It's all kinds of bad. It's all kinds of baffling. You really wonder how anyone really at Walt Disney Studios allowed their flagship character to be at the center of something like this. It begins with Mickey Mouse playing a video game where you apparently play the seven dwarfs fighting the evil witch, and he's playing as Dopey because it's implied he has killed all other dwarfs already. I mean, just that alone. Side note, I kind of want to play that video game, but just the fact that it begins with the implication that Mickey Mouse plays a video game where he previously killed all the other dwarfs is the funniest and best thing about the entire thing. So Minnie Mouse comes home and is standing right in front of the television set because stupid ass Minnie Mouse believes that she needs to be the center of attention the moment she comes home. And she gets mad right away. This is an awful depiction of Minnie Mouse. This is, if anyone, I mean, I have been ranting on this podcast a lot about what a stupid, awful character Minnie Mouse is. Just watch the opening of this, and this is everything I hate about Minnie Mouse and more. Mickey Mouse, at the same time, is not really depicted greatly either because Mickey Mouse is clearly obsessed, maybe even addicted to this strange video game. They are arguing over their anniversary. There is no good communication between the two of them. Why are they a couple? They are both awful. They are. There's so much disdain between the two of them. Minnie Mouse doesn't love Mickey. Minnie is such an awful, shallow person. All she wants from the relationship is being admired and getting a gift for their anniversary. Mickey clearly cares more about the video game than about Minnie Mouse. I mean, I get it. I would care more about the video game than about Minnie Mouse as well. There's a brief interlude of Pluto also. You didn't mention how manyth nomination for Pluto this is, and I sort of understand because Pluto is completely wasted in the short. Yeah, and then there's this plot that kicks in that leads to a fight between Giant Pete with Mickey's brain versus feral Mickey with Pete's brain, which also doesn't make much sense because in any case, Giant Pete with Mickey's brain, even if it's Mickey's brain, it's not a lot, should be beating feral Mickey anyway, because he's a mouse and he's much, much tinier. It doesn't make much sense. There's a strange line that where actual Mickey tells to feral Mickey, Minnie Mouse likes my body and my mind. Yeah.
That's not true.
She doesn't love him. I mean, just watch the opening scene of the short. There's an action scene. The editing is terrible half the time. I have no idea what's really going on. Also because I get the sense that there's so much story crammed into these, 7.5 minutes or 8 minutes. There's never any actual sense of dread. There's never any actual sense of excitement. I don't care about the characters anywhere. I feel insulted by this. Why did this get an Oscar nomination? Why did this even get released by Disney? Why didn't people at Disney just look at this and say, okay, you know what? We won't release this anyway. Just put it in our world. No one should ever have to watch this. Why?
Well, they're trying the best to make that happen. Like to
They should have started sooner with that.
Yeah, you can blame Jeffrey Katzenberg for that. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Although I think I've turned out where it's like I'm a bit softer on this short than you are. Is just like because I do think this is a bad short, but I've learned not to really hate it as much. For some, I don't really understand, but still, it's just like I still agree with pretty much everything that you said there. And it's just like this short can really almost neatly be divided into like these minute chunks of like what's going on. And this is essentially what I wrote in my Letterboxd review. But it's just like the first 2 minutes, you just got Mickey being the worst boyfriend ever, and Minnie being the most generic stereotype of a woman that has ever been portrayed in film or in shorts or anything. It's just, and then for minutes 3 and 4, we get Mickey who's trying to get like the $1,000 he needs to go on the actual vacation Minnie wants instead of the stupid date that he planned, the quote unquote planned. He gets to spend some time with Kelsey Grammer as a mad scientist monkey, which is fun in theory, but it doesn't really amount to much, especially since he brutally dies in a minute later. But still, it's an inventive concept at least. And then once he dies and once their brains are swapped, we just get this really lackluster chase scene between like giant Mickey in the Pete body and the feral Mickey in the Mickey body. It's just like nothing's going on here. It's just like he finds Mickey or Minnie who just happens to be across the street and shopping for a swimsuit, and then they chase him down.
The tiniest bikini you have ever seen.
Yes.
I don't want to sexualize Minnie Mouse this much. Why is she buying the tiniest bikini?
Because maybe Disney is perverts. Maybe Chris Bailey's a pervert. Who knows? But anyway, there's this very short chase scene in which they run into electric wires, and the electricity causes their brains to switch back, making the whole brain switch thing just absolutely pointless because we barely get any time with the feral Mickey. But anyway, then Big Julius and little Mickey start fighting on the rooftop, and it's just, I think this might be the best part of the short, because there is some interesting, like in terms of the visuals, it does get a bit interesting there. There's like one part where like Mickey's swinging around on like a rope or whatever. I think that was kind of fun. But but then after that, it's just like they knock Pete off the roof. It's just a very rushed ending, or they actually do go to Hawaii, albeit in a very cheap way that Minnie seems to not really care about, because she's just kind of accepted anything that Mickey would do. It's just so, the worst part about this short is really the fact that there's just not enough time for what this short wants to do. It wants to be this really big kind of, maybe even like a 15-minute, maybe 30-minute short film that's like very horror-esque. It's like does some interesting like body horror elements, and like it wants to have this big chase scene. It wants to have like actual moments with Mickey, with the feral Mickey and stuff, but it's just not granted any of the time to do that. So what we're left with is just this Mickey short that doesn't want to be a Mickey short, but is cramming itself into this box anyway, and it wants to be more of a horror short, but it doesn't let itself do that. It's just this very counterintuitive process on all fronts. And I think what really would have saved this film is if it was a Donald short, because I think that just, this whole situation just fits Donald so much better. Because first of all, it's just like, I get that the short was trying to reinvent Mickey, but they're just trying to reinvent Mickey to be like Donald, where he has actual personality and actual character. Because Donald is allowed to be a bad boyfriend. Like, that's something that is baked into his character. It's like he's allowed to be a bad uncle. It's just like he is, like, there's that one short, Donald's Crime, where he steals from his nephews, and it's just like and then he feels guilty about it the whole time or whatever. But then it's just like, they just want to make Mickey Donald. And so why not? We should just have made this a Donald short. You can make good Mickey shorts. You can use that character effectively, but it wants to just not be Mickey. And it's just like, yes, I would also not want Mickey. He sucks, but he doesn't have to. You can have Mickey and have a good character if you actually work at it. But it's just like, most of the time Disney just does not care enough, even though he is their star boy. Or maybe they just care too much. They care too much about upholding the stupid brand. And it's just like, we got to make Mickey boring in order to make sure parents don't get mad at us for making him our mascot. And it's so misguided. It's just such a bad attempt at a Mickey short film. It's like, I understand where they came from, why this short got made, but at the end, it just doesn't work. And it's not about any specific cuts made by the studio. It's not about anything besides the fact that from the beginning, this was not going to be a good short film. This was not going to be a good Mickey short. It just was never going to work. And that's unfortunate, because I really like the idea of a Disney horror short film that Disney is too ashamed of to ever reference again publicly, and internally uses it as a what not to do with the Mickey character. But it's just not interesting enough. It's not good enough to really warrant any interest. It's just, maybe if it was better, it's like Disney would eventually come around on it. It's just like, they would have, if there was enough fan like appeal, they would eventually be like, you know what, let's forgive Chris Bailey for making this and actually like put it on Disney Plus, make some merch of it. But no one gives a shit, because it's mid.
A bad Mickey horror short should be fun rather than annoying.
It's just not good. And that's really the end of it. And I also just want to point out how, like, you mentioned how Pluto is in this, but I didn't mention him in the like my little intro and counting up the nominations, it's because Pluto was so not part of this. He's there, and like I think he does point out the newspaper to Mickey with like the wanted
Yeah, that's the
ads.
one thing he does.
Yeah, but it's just like he's not relevant enough to be for me to like count him. And it's just like it's the same thing with Minnie in Mickey's Christmas Carol because she's there. She is definitely there, but she doesn't say anything or do anything in it. She's just there.
Dopey is a more significant character in this film than Pluto.
Oh yeah. Like you know what? I should have mentioned Dopey in my. It's like this is the first and only nomination for Dopey in this category.
Yeah, and it's just as I said, I would love to play this computer game because it's kind of wild because at the bottom of the screen are 6 tombstones with the names of the other 6 dwarfs on them, which also kind of implies that Dopey was the last ditch character that Mickey went to for playing this game. It's why would you do this to the 7 dwarfs? Just randomly put up at the end there are then because then when Dopey dies in the game there are then all 7 tombstones with the names of dwarfs on them. Why would you do that to these characters just for a throwaway gag?
Oh, you're gonna love this anecdote I have. So that wasn't the original idea for the video game. What it was originally going to be was Mickey shooting Bambi's mom.
Yeah, why not? That's great.
But like even back when like Jeffrey Katzenberg was on his side or whatever, they were still like, no, you are not doing that. But the 7 dwarves fighting with like Mickey losing his other 6 lives and Dopey being the bottom of the tier list, probably. It's just like I actually curious like how this game is even going to be set up. It's just like what are the different character like from what I gathered from just reading up on this, I think it was meant to kind of be a parody of like Mortal Kombat and things like that. Maybe kind of like the story mode where it's like a tournament fighter. You fight through the different levels, and it's like I imagine we see the evil queen or whatever as like I imagine she's like the final boss. But I'm wondering what else would they fight? Like she's the only real evil person, especially that the dwarves fight with in the whole movie. So it's just like this has to be the only level.
Hunter.
Yeah, but I don't think that like yeah, that's another character, but that's it. Like maybe they fight with like anthropomorphic gems in the mine, and it's just like they're pickaxing them.
Okay, question. In what order would you choose the dwarves from most useful to least useful in this Mortal Kombat scenario?
Okay, number 1, Doc, easily. He is definitely the best fighter out of them.
Are you sure? Because I kind of think that maybe Grumpy would be the best because a somewhat grumpy fighter would maybe be more angry, and maybe as he's angry, I would agree. If it's not Grumpy, then it's definitely Doc.
Grumpy is all talk and no game. I would actually put him at the bottom tier list. I'm actually thinking that Dopey is probably a better choice, and I'm thinking that Mickey used Dopey last because he has no fucking sense about how the game works. He's just a bad gamer. That's why he lost the other 6 lives.
Yeah.
But I would place Dopey second probably, and I need to look up the other dwarves.
Well, I think I would say I still believe that Grumpy maybe is so angry that he would be a good first choice. Then Doc second because Doc is clever, Happy just for being well adjusted, and then Sneezy because maybe he has a superpower to give the opponent COVID. Who knows? I think that Sleepy, Bashful, and Dopey would all be similarly useless. Probably Dopey first out of them. I mean, Sleepy is sleeping through the whole thing, and Bashful would be too timid to do anything to the opponent. So I don't see how they would be any use in this scenario.
Okay,
maybe Bashful first and then Sleepy last.
Okay, I'm gonna make my rank now. So I think first is Doc. And then I'm sticking with Dopey second. I think he's very much a wild card that I think he could get some good hits in. After that, I'm thinking Happy. Like he's a very neutral character. I think he could easily get some good hits in if he tried. It's just like I know he's probably a bit of a wuss, but I think he could get some stuff. And then after that, I'm thinking Grumpy after that, which, like I said, I think he's all talk and no game, but at the same time, I think that the other dwarves are just a bit useless. It's like after that, maybe I'll switch Bashful and Grumpy just because like Bashful has like a lot of heft to him. I think he could be a good power character, but Sleepy and Sneezy, both of them are just. I know that if this were a real game, they'd have just like a cute quirk where like Sneezy half the time is sneezing during his animation and you can't fucking fight with him. And same with Sleepy. He would just fall asleep randomly. And it's just like you're just gonna put these useless quirks in this fucking game and just make the two characters just absolutely unplayable. Well, as just like why even include them? But yeah, that's what I think the tier list of this fictional game that will never be a real game would be.
But it's so much better than Runaway Brain.
Oh yeah, like I would rather play the game than watch this short. I would rather play as Sleepy than watch the short. do a whole speed run of the game as Sleepy. But yeah, Mickey is a shit boyfriend and a shit gamer.
And Minnie is awful, awful, awful. She thinks she's the center of attention because of I don't know why. Also, we should point out at the end of the short, she's actually wearing that tiny ass bikini.
Mm-hmm. I actually couldn't remember if she was. I was thinking about the whole bikini thing, like when she was planning them, but I forgot to make a mental note if she was actually wearing anything.
She's wearing, at least she's wearing a yellow bikini, and I assume it's the tiniest bikini that she bought, which seems to be covering more of a body than you would assume when you just see it there in store.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just like very stretchy fabric or something.
Maybe.
I will also point one thing about that ending, which is another cut that the producers made, because like at the end of the short, you have Mickey and Minnie. They're going to Hawaii and they're being pulled by Julius/Pete, and he's being lured by the picture of Minnie that he originally like fawned over that made him lust after Minnie, but the original version,
while an actual bikini-clad Minnie is right behind him.
Yeah, is literally like riding him. It's just like which I don't get, but cute little ending, I guess, whatever. But the original thing was that they had like a pillow, like a mini made out of like pillows or something. And it's just like a statue or some effigy of Minnie that he was swimming after. Or it's like it was the same setup where it's like on a stick or whatever. And it's like I don't really get why that was even cut. Like it's not, it doesn't make sense as a real change for me, because it's like it's the same thing in the end. It's just he's being powered by his lust for Minnie. But it's just like, why does it making it the wallet picture instead of like an effigy of Minnie change anything? Why is the wallet picture more friendly? I don't know.
We don't have to understand it.
It's probably impossible to understand. It's a weird producer decision made about a weird short.
Also, point in case about Minnie being the stupidest character of the entire Disney canon. Although this feral giant Pete has the hots for her and would probably destroy her, she has no problem just sitting in this boat right behind him. Even although she's pretty much in mortal danger, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's Minnie. She's stupid. She doesn't care.
Oh yeah, and also like when the feral Mickey like first approaches her, she does not realize anything's wrong. She thinks that this is normal Mickey, which I guess could also just speak more to Mickey as a character rather than Minnie's perception. Like maybe Mickey just does this sometimes.
Yeah, but again, why are they a couple? There's no communication between them. She doesn't even recognize that something's off with him. What are the two of them doing together? It's not like they have kids and stay together for them. It's just she is just so vapid. I don't like it.
Maybe he's good in bed. I don't know.
I don't believe it. Doesn't he canonically have not genitals because we've seen him naked in the bath?
True, but then again, maybe it's like a fish creature, a bird thing, where it's like a cloaca.
Yeah, or he's good with his fingers. Who knows?
Yeah, and he takes the gloves off. Anything's possible. I do want to say one more thing, and that's like, so usually when characters, when like, especially modern times, when there's like a mom and who's like talking, it's like, son, it's time for dinner, and it's like, can't mom, I'm playing a game. Hey man, it's just like, can't you pause it? And it's like, no, of course not. It's like, Mickey could have paused the game. He could have.
Yeah,
It's just a fucking fighting game. It's not like he's playing online or anything. He could have paused it to talk to his fucking girlfriend. But no, he doesn't, because he values the video game more than her. And
and
he
how could you blame him?
and it's just like, he probably only wanted to go on that cheap ass mini golf date to barely appease her, just so he could get that mussy again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he had actually planned it. It just happens to spot this mini golf ad on the newspaper and just holding it into her face. And it's just because she is seeing the ad for the vacation Hawaii right below it that they even go as far as uh, considering going to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. Just a lot of bad communication, and it wouldn't have happened if, when he was describing the date, he just said mini golf instead of
Yeah.
like, oh, you're going to a sunny place, or whatever he was saying, which is just stupid. But then again, it's the kind of stupid that you expect from short films. And it's like, it's nothing specific to this. It's just this short makes it worse, because this is just a bad short. If this
Yeah,
was a
it
good
is.
short, I'd forgive it.
I mean,
But
if it was a good short, it would actually be fun to watch it, but it's not.
yeah, I, I actually want to hear your thoughts on something I said earlier. Like, do you think this would be better as a Donald short?
Yes, because Donald is a much better character than Mickey. And if you swap Mickey and Minnie for Donald and Daisy, it would be better immediately because these Donald and Daisy are fantastic characters.
Mhm.
And I mean, you still would have. I mean, even if the entire rest is still a shit, it would be a better short. But you would still have to maybe rewrite it to actually make it work. But yeah, it feels closer to the nature of Donald to go feral. So
Mhm.
feral, not feral, that's it, right? To go
Yeah.
feral. So yeah.
And I'm actually remembering a time when he has gone feral in another short. It was it's part of Fun and Fancy Free, the Mickey and the Beanstalk one, where it's just like, at the start of it, it's Mickey, Donald, and Goofy living together, and they have to share like a very thin slice of bread and like one bean to eat. And then like Donald just starts to go mad with hunger, and I think he tries to attack Mickey to eat him or something. And it's just like and that's when he goes out to sell their cow and whatever, and the whole Jack and the Beanstalk thing. And it's just like, yeah, it is in character, and it would make sense if Daisy just saw feral Donald and is just like, oh yeah, this is just Donald.
Yeah.
Well, of course it is.
Oh, you're having one of your moods again.
You see, that would be a good line if she like acknowledges that, like, oh, there's clearly something wrong with you, but I'm used to this by now. God, it's just like, yeah, it's like, assuming like if this were Donald short and they had good writers on this Donald short, yeah, this could really, really work as Donald short. It just doesn't work as a Mickey short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's time that we move on from Runaway Brain. I think we've said our piece.
Yeah. And I believe our rankings, I believe we might agree on number one. I don't think we are gonna agree on much else.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And really, the number one is what everybody comes to this year for. The fact of the matter is, the other four shorts are just not as memorable. But yes, let's go through the formality. We've gone through and talked about these five nominees. Let's rank them all. Christof, start us off with your number five.
My number 5 is Runaway Brain. I don't know why this exists. I don't know why this is an official Disney Mickey Mouse short. I don't know why this got an Oscar nomination. It's an easy number 5 in this lineup for me.
My number 5 is The End, which I think should have been apparent from everything I was saying about it, and the fact that I had listed it as like the 6th worst nominee in this entire category's history. But yeah, just truly unpleasant to watch and listen to just throughout, and I would not enjoy watching this ever again. Number 4.
My number 4 is The Chicken from Outer Space. It's weird. I didn't dislike it. It's just weird, and I don't know what it's doing.
My number 4 is Runaway Brain because of the aforementioned reasons. Just not a good short film. It has maybe interesting ideas, but they are just not executed in a way that works. Number 3.
My number 3 is Gagarin. It's cute. It's simple. It's 3 minutes long. It's cute.
Yes. My number 3 is Chicken from Outer Space. I enjoy Courage the Cowardly Dog. I enjoy this short film well enough. It's just a bit unpolished, I guess. I guess that's it. It's just weird, interesting, kind of fun, but not the best thing ever. It's all right. Number 2.
Yeah. Well, actually, our rankings aren't that different from one another, only that your number 5 is my number 2, and everything else is in the same order.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming that you're not hugely surprising me with your number 1, number 2 here, because my number 2 is The End. We already seen that we are on very much different sides for that one. I love the concept. I think it's executed in a funny way. For me, I'll give it benefit of the doubt. For me, this entire pretentious mockery, this mockery of its pretentiousness works. I really enjoyed The End, so that's my number 2.
And my number 2 is Gagarin, of course. It is simple and cute, and I enjoyed it. It's a cute little thing. It's something that I feel like I could just, if I'm ever in the mood for just some light entertainment, just want to rewatch some things I've already seen, this would be easily in the lineup. Just a cute little thing to get my spirits up. And our number 1 is, of course, say it. You could say it, Christof. What's the number 1?
It's A Close Shave.
Of course.
It's Wallace and Gromit. It's probably the best Wallace and Gromit short. It's fun. It's great. It's inventive. It's fun. It's exciting. It's Wallace and Gromit. I love it.
Yes, it is just, in my opinion, it's the best Wallace and Gromit short. You said as much as well, and it's like there's not even much to really say about it. It's just Wallace and Gromit, and everyone knows how great Wallace and Gromit is. And it's just like if the love of my life said that they hated Wallace and Gromit, I think I might have to give them up, because how could someone not like Wallace and Gromit? And then I find that a sheep is eating my Wallace and Gromit collection that I just bought. But yes, of course, like I think this is just the obvious pick for anyone who watches this year. It's simply the best one.
Yeah, and sometimes the obvious pick is also the correct pick.
Yes. Sometimes it's not. Like there are definitely years where it's just like there's the famous nominee and then there's a weirder one that's actually better. Like the Sound of Sunshine, Sound of Rain being up against I think it was Mickey's Christmas Carol was that year. But yeah. For this year, Wallace and Gromit just wins, as it does in most of its other years.
Yeah.
Actually, I think all of its other years. I try to remember. Yeah, because I do pick A Grand Day Out. I do pick Wrong Trousers. I pick A Close Shave. And
dude, spoilers! I haven't listened to those episodes yet.
I'm sorry. That's right. I keep forgetting that that I do record so far in advance that like the next episode to come out is the 1980 bonus episode. which haven't recorded yet actually, but it comes out in 4 days, which get ready for that. but um but yeah, it's I do record in advance intentionally just because I want to give my guests time in case scheduling issues come up or whatever. But it's just like sometimes I forget that, like, yeah, when I'm talking about things, my guest is definitely not going to know what I'm talking about. Partially because most of my guests don't listen to the podcast, but also because even if they wanted to, they couldn't. Yeah, like we're recording this with 5 episodes behind us that I have recorded but have not publicly released yet, which is, I think, actually like a bit like short, or in terms of like my usual, just because I've gotten a bit behind because I went on vacation last week. But yeah, now I'm back to it. I'm gonna be recording a bunch of these, and I think I'm going to end up getting really behind, or really, actually, really ahead, because I'm going to record the 2000s right after I finish the 90s, just so I can record them all before the holiday season.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to our next episode.
Oh yes, Harvey Crumpet. It's going to be a great time.
Yes, so great.
Yeah. But anyway,
And now you promised me it's gonna be Harvey Crumpet. So
oh yeah, it's definitely going to be Harvey Crumpet. Do not worry about it. You are going to be talking about Harvey Crumpet and Bounden and Destino and Gone Nutty and Nibbles. Definitely. Then anyway,
that's a fact.
Before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Christof, or anything you'd like to promote?
No, I'm just happy to have been talking about the Wallace and Gromit short, and I'm looking forward to talking about Harvey Crumpet next time.
Mm-hmm. And I'm happy that we are able to record another episode for our lovely listener, Greta Gerwig, who is definitely listening right now, who's definitely the biggest fan of our podcast. And our podcast has millions of listeners.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Bye, Greta.
Bye, Greta. But yeah, thank you for Christof for coming on the show once again for the 8th time. And we got so many more episodes planned together. And then thank you, listener, for tuning in, especially if you're Greta Gerwig. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.